Following immediately after the previous game, a blast of energy from the Banshee somehow causes distortions throughout time, causing 4 different broken timelines. The Master Detective must make their way through these 4 broken timelines, each one representing a different case, so that they can fix them and stop the destruction of the world and time itself. I do consider this game better than the previous one. This game, in fact, took what I was expecting from Rewind and gave that plot to me. And it does a really good job with that. It was nice revisiting all of these places and revisiting all of these characters. They were also able to do all this while still making the game feel like its own. This didn't feel like a rehashing of the previous games or an attempt to recapture the glory of the previous games without putting in the effort like I felt the previous game was. This had an interesting premise which allowed for revisiting while still moving forward and hopefully looking into the future. While I did certainly like this game, there are a few nitpicky things that, while not that big a deal on their own, do add up over the course of the game. And I will go section by section. In the first section, the Ravenhurst one, the timeline gets just a little bit wonky. We go back to the events of Return to Ravenhurst and interact with Rose while we try to avoid Charles. This makes sense. But then we stumble upon a recording of Charles from Escape from Ravenhurst, which doesn't. He wouldn't make those videos until after we freed Rose, which obviously hasn't happened yet at this particular point in the timeline, so it doesn't ultimately make all that much sense. It's a little Easter egg that really probably shouldn't be there, and it also doesn't really contribute anything to the overall plot, so really didn't need to be. In the Broken Hour section, and yes, I am still baffled as to why the creators are spending so much time in the Broken Hour game, the person that we interact with is Harold, the father of this section's big bad, Meredith. The problem with this is that Harold ends up encased in ice in the original game. Now, Harold is immortal, like his daughter, although without the lack of humanity. Somehow, this game was not good at explaining things, so it's possible that he could have survived that, but it would have been nice to have at least someone acknowledge that it happened. The Madame Fate section was good, but the guy that they got to voice Alistair was just not intimidating. As boring as I found Alistair in whatever games that he appeared in, he at least did a good job of sounding intimidating. This guy just wasn't, but thankfully he didn't talk all that much. Finally, the last section, the Black Veil, has 2 points. One, the guy who voices Richard, our main big bad, is different from the person who voiced him in the original game. This wouldn't necessarily be bad, but it sounds like someone who's trying and failing to recreate the voice, and it can be a little distracting. However, like Alistair, he doesn't talk all that much, and when he does, his voice is all distorted anyway. And the second point is in one of the hidden object scenes. One of the items I needed to find was a bottle. Here is a screenshot of one part of that scene. None of the bottles that you can clearly see are the bottle that I am looking for. Didn't need that nostalgic blast from Huntsville game. One last thing that I wanted to address is the ending, so spoiler warning. Overall opinion, for those who are curious but don't want to be spoiled, I think this is a very good game that does a good job of mixing the previous games while making it its own newer game. A few minor bad things and a confusing ending that maybe is leading to a sequel, while annoying, is not enough to stop me from disliking this game. 8 out of 10. So the ending of the game reveals that the character that's been helping you in this kind of out-of-town section is a version of yourself. When you fixed all of the timelines, this version of you died, but it was able to set everything back to the way it was supposed to be. I don't fully understand how that happened or why it needed to, but I didn't have much time to think about it before I jumped back to the present, and someone helped me up and then said in a very sinister voice, "You're under our protection now," and their eyes flashed green.
Everything's okay. You're under our protection now, Master Detective.
So, was I unsuccessful? Did I put all that work in for nothing? Did that version of me die for no reason? What is happening? And unlike the previous game, there was no end credit scene that revealed the next game. This ending was frustrating not just because it felt like I put all this work in for nothing, which is always annoying, but also because it seems to be setting up a sequel that also deals with these broken timelines because the flash of green represents the broken timelines and has the past couple of games. As I mentioned in my reviews for the previous games, I was really hoping that this game would wrap up all of these past timelines so that this company could start making their own games instead of just copies of the past, and I thought that that's what this game was doing. But that ending kind of makes me feel dubious. Now, when I first wrote this script, Crossfade was the most recent game that came out. Since then, they have released a few other games, and while most of them don't address this whole broken timelines thing, there is one coming up that does. However, the whole sinister voice person saying you're under our protection and having the eyes flash green, that's never addressed again. So that was still something that I don't understand why they did. Even with all of these negative things, though, I do still think that this is a good game. It was a nice trip down memory lane, and it was able to do it in a way that was creative and never got boring. This really was Rewind done right. So, once again, I am giving it an 8 out of 10. So, to my friends and fellow VEDSies, I will see all of you, hopefully, tomorrow.